Okay, hi everyone. Welcome to Remembrance Podcast. So today we have Ginger Kern, known as Mythic Feminine on Instagram. So Ginger is serving devotion, union, and truth through her writings shared on her platforms on social media and through her services such as mentorship, masterclasses, and group journeys. So I started to follow Ginger many months ago. I think it was in January, and her posts were just popping into my Instagram field that were shared by other women also in the realm of devotional union. And yeah, I can say that I'm someone that have a very good discernment sword, and I could sense the integrity of this woman in the way that she expresses herself. So I followed her and spent a month in her container soul sanctuary in May. That was such a beautiful experience to be in her field and to receive her teachings. So, Ginger, welcome. Thank you for being on the podcast with us.
Thank you, Megan. I appreciate you, and thank you for having me.
Such a pleasure to have you. Yes, I would love to start with the basics because some people might be familiar with the term sacred union, some not. So I would love to, for you to describe what is a sacred union, just the basics
Just the basics,
for now.
for now. Yeah, let's start even simpler. Just with union. We don't even have to use the term sacred for a moment, because I think that brings into the picture a whole realm of potentially mystical teachings that we'll want to climb into slowly. We'll get there. Hold your horses, But no, union, right? So a lot of women will come into my field and they're desiring union of some sort, usually with men or with masculine men very specifically. And when they encounter me, very often, just like you shared, they'll have this sort of activation happen in their soma, in their body, in their nervous system, just reading my words, which I always just feel so grateful for, because what it tells me is that's a woman who's in her receptive feeling body, which I believe is a prerequisite for union, because if we can't feel ourselves, how can we feel what we need? How can we feel and ascertain our values? How can we express those feelings if we can't feel them, and therefore get them met by a man or anyone external to us, whether we want union or whether we're repairing relationships with our family members, for example. It's another common pathway in. So union can also mean, as you know, inner union first and foremost, as sort of this precursor to the external manifestation of sacred union showing up in our lived experience of reality with a counterpart, right? So I think that's where I would love to just climb in, is more so on the territory of union as it relates to how do we be with ourselves? And then from that place, if we're really in tune with ourselves, can we open and actually allow ourselves to be exposed in front of, for example, a man, which is very challenging for a lot of us, isn't it? So.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, this is I've been seeing that in many posts, union is not for the faint of heart because it's such a challenging path, because it guides us to really face what is not love, the distortions of love within us. It's such a beautiful and mystic and magical path as well. And yeah, I also hear like it might not be for everyone because each and every one of us walk their own path, but at the same time, I really feel it's actually a sacred responsibility to align to this type of relationship, not just external, but like relationship within. So I would love to hear you on how it can, like doing that can really impact our lives and the world actually in the most beautiful ways, and how it's actually, a sacred responsibility.
You start with the biggest questions, and something I love about you. I remember that from inside of Soul Sanctuary, because we have this thing inside of Soul Sanctuary, my community, where every week the ladies will ask questions, either anonymously or sometimes they'll tell me who's asking. And yeah, like your inquiries were always these vast, soulful, massive inquiries. And I love that, because it allows me to play a little bit more of my range and more of my breadth. So thank you. Yeah, I mean, it is a responsibility, isn't it? And I think that's why we see in this day and age a lot of people going other paths, because it does feel hard. It looks hard from the outside, and frankly, on the inside, it's hard sometimes. It's also beautiful, it's blissful, it's wonderful, it's surreal, and it's also extremely human. And yeah, it really takes something to continue to show up to the altar of love, doesn't it? And yeah, I feel the responsibility first and foremost lies with being with what energy is actually trying to animate through us. So when I speak, I often will speak about patterns and, like in my own system, how energy runs. And I hold a fairly large not the largest I've ever seen. Like there are certainly teachers that I've been able to and trained to who hold massive fields. And the way that they carry the mantle of responsibility of, often also threads of union in their life, as well as in their work and their service, is far greater of a reach, quote unquote, than my true size might be. But even so, like, does it matter actually in the end, the number of people that we touch or impact, or does it matter the depth and the quality of how we run the energy that is actually true for us, that's actually meant to like inhabit our vessels, and how we allow that to come through, whether that be in our service, whether that be in a relationship or family, or, as mothers, for example, which I am not yet, and neither are you, but, it's something that both of us, I know, desire. Um, so I think sometimes what can happen in these conversations around union or around, yeah, like service, is women have a tendency to idealize and almost pedestalize a certain glossy picture of what it should look like to take on that responsibility of serving, right? And do so from a place of like genuineness. They'll like kind of pedestalize and put it outside of themselves, versus actually just looking within and seeing, what is my garden to tend to? Where is the little patch of land, so to speak, that is mine, that I can cultivate, that I can pour myself into, that you can tend to, that you can look around in your community, or, whatever strata of responsibility you choose to take on in this chapter of your life. That could change later, right? As well. And how do you tend to that little plot of land? Are you devoted to pulling the weeds out of it one by one? Are you devoted to sowing really beautiful seeds and cultivating them, watering them, allowing them to have the spaciousness to grow? So I love to use plant metaphors, garden metaphors, because I find it works really well for us as women. We can feel that. We can really, yeah, it's something that's tactile and tangible. We can touch it. We can smell it. We can really like place ourselves, our bodies in the rose garden of our lives and say, okay, this is a sacred responsibility, but it's not heavy. It's not burdensome. It's actually something that I do want to devote my life to, no matter what, because you know what? I love roses and I love the process of feeling the sun on my skin when I'm gardening. You know what I'm saying? So that's a little winding river of a metaphor to kind of step into that conversation around the sacred responsibility of serving union, or serving truth, serving the energetic of truth, not an ideal, not something we project outside of ourselves. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. When you were sharing about that, there is a quote that popped up into my mind from Gillian Potier. Uh, I don't remember the perfect quote, but it said something like, it's ego or eros. And it came to me because, yeah, you were sharing about the importance of like really choosing this path with love. It's either you choose to perceive it as a beautiful journey and to really enjoy it, or to really like be in pain and suffering all the time, which is actually, if you're in that space, from what I realized from my path, is actually no. If I'm in pain and suffering, how can I just align to real love if I'm not that for myself first?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's easier said than done, right? So we all have our moments of crying on our knees, or just the heart wrenching moments that feel like they'll never end. But
Mhm.
then all of a sudden they do, by the grace of God or by the hand of grace or whatever word you want to use for that force that comes into life and helps guide us, and supports us in those darker moments.
Yeah, absolutely. And about that, um, what is the importance of time alone for a woman on this path? Is it important?
I'm very biased.
Mm.
So, one lens that I like to try on sometimes is just the lens of human design, which in that lens, I'm what's called a manifester. And apparently, I do need that time alone. But, no matter the lens you try on, whether it's just, tracking your own energetic system and being really loyal to that pulse of what is true moment to moment, which is a form of integrity. It's a sort of feminine form of integrity. It's more honest with your own system. We're all going to need alone time at some points here, right? So, and I'm fairly extroverted as things go, but that doesn't mean that I don't need the time and the space to go within. So I think one of the things we can speak about here is the importance of actually becoming familiar with the void as women. So what we'll encounter in the topside world or in the external world, day to day, everyday life, is all sorts of hooks or pulls that attempt to keep us sort of hovering above that void space, a creational void space, which is within each of us as women. And whether those hooks come through entertainment or social media or birth control or all sorts of other, we could go on ad infinitum, right? That's a very long list of things that keep us hovering above, that internal space that contacts the mystery. But to your point about being alone, one of the ways that we can start to, develop a relationship with the void, which is also to say, develop a relationship with a portal into the primordial feminine, is to really guard and protect that alone time for ourselves, or, to put it in a more quote unquote feminine way, to hold or cherish that time as sacred, knowing that we're not going to get that time forever, right? So I speak all the time with women who are mothers, who are my clients. It's just a different world. Once you cross that particular threshold in initiation, it's a different relationship to alone time, right? Because you're no longer just a sovereign individual. You have the mother baby dyad, you have the mother child dyad. So I think, to your point about it being important, especially for those of us as maidens, whether you be a young maiden who's listening, or you know older maiden, or whatever you want to call it, as yet not a mother. That's what I'm trying to say here. So perhaps a fully mature woman, but not yet a mother. It's a very different conversation for
Mm.
us. And I actually do think it makes a big difference for us to take intentional time and just be with ourselves while we have the opportunity, because it probably won't last forever, you know?
Mhm.
So why not give ourselves that opportunity now when we have it? And that might look like unplugging from a lot of the chatter, a lot of the viral noise that's sort of out
Yes,
there, right? As you know.
absolutely.
um, and whether that means coming to a prayer mat very officially, or whether that simply means you go for a walk. I like to call them hot girl walks,
Mm.
like long, slow, medium hot girl walks, just to take that time and just be in your own energy. Know what you feel like. Just be with yourself, actually. So important. It's so nutritional for us,
Mhm.
especially for those of us who tend to live in our minds a bit more and are, frankly, scared of spaciousness and dropping into that deeper current of what's really there underneath, which I get, for you, for probably many of your listeners who are drawn to you, that's not where you don't get freaked out by that. You actually love the space and the quietude, right? There's a nun-like quality almost to, I think, women such as yourself and those in your field. And I don't mean that from a chaste perspective. I just mean that from how you hold your energetic field. It's very um, sanctified and quiet, because you hold it that way, which is beautiful. It's a gift to the world as well.
Mhm. Yeah, what came to me this past years is how can I truly, truly hear what's within if I'm constantly distracted and going out and doing this and giving my energy like freely to, and yeah, that's what brought me to this journey of understanding the importance of being with myself so that I can truly hear what's within, and so that I can hear and align and take the necessary actions with that. And yeah, because there's a lot of noise for sure, for sure.
Yeah. And so that's something that asks us, I think, as women to develop a quality that I like to call the sword. It's a bit sharper, right?
Yeah.
So all of this talk on, Instagram land about, be so feminine, be soft, be relaxed all the time, soft girl life, la, la, la. Fine, great. And that's super medicinal for a lot of us up to a point. And that point gets reached when, just as you said, we realize that actually there's something that we're meant to bring through or embody or whatever, animate, whatever word you want to use. And yet, of course, there are all of these external influences that in, a place where we're less fortified, a place where we're just soft and very permeable and malleable, we're not going to actually be able to penetrate, so to speak. And I use that word because it feels so masculine. So for a feminine system, it's like, wait, what? You mean I can be penetrative and be feminine? And so I like to sort of play with energetics detached from societal views of dogmatic energetic binaries, while also staying super anchored in my female nature. So like very, very loyal to female biology, meaning I'm probably not going to develop that quality of like slicing through the noise if I'm deep in luteal and about to bleed and very, very tender. Or depending on who I am as a woman, for me, I actually sometimes have an even sharper sword in late luteal because
Mhm.
I just don't have time for nonsense. So it just depends. This is why it's non-dogmatic. It has to be really in tune with your body, my body, the person who's listening, right? Her body. Because otherwise, what are we doing? We're outsourcing to someone else's prescriptive diagnostic of what the feminine should look like,
Mhm.
which is just not going to work. It's just not going to work. So, yeah, does that track? Like, can you track that in yourself as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Yeah, it just made me think of the importance of the sword of discernment. Especially when you go on social media and see the thousands of posts about relationship and men and masculine, how to be a woman, how to be a man. It's like so much noise, and then you're like, okay, well, what should I do? And you're completely disconnected from what's within you, what's like the truth, and it's like so much noise. And yeah, again, I just want to share my appreciation for you and for a few other teachers that I follow that really yeah are devoted to truth. And by speaking about truth, you are devoted to truth from
Hmm.
what you shared. And for me, without fully understanding it, like I feel it fully from you. And so could you elaborate on what that means for you?
To be devoted to truth or something else?
To be devoted to truth.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. Another big topic. So here we go. Buckle up, everybody. First of all, there is no such thing as perfection. I always have to like give that disclaimer because anytime we talk about stuff that's like, okay, there's this ideal that, we want to devote ourselves to. That ideal can sometimes become a tyrannical force for those of us who have grown up with good girl programming and perfectionism in our constellations. I will raise my hand with that one.
Mhm.
So fine. Okay, great. We want to devote our lives to something. And guess what? We're never going to arrive. It's never going to be perfect. We've already been failing like the whole time. So we can just like get with that reality and then redevote our lives to something that we care about from a much more like softened place. Um, yeah. So one of the things I feel immediately when I'm like talking about the energetic of truth is it doesn't care what I think about it. Truth is in a way very ruthless to all that is not true. So like it's not comfortable. And I think that's where most women tend to like pop out of the conversation because they're like, "Ooh, that's too much. I don't know if I can handle that. I don't want to die." It's like, okay, well, there you go. That's just showing you where your fear actually lies. It's fear of death, fear of, or rather lack of trust in resurrection, right? Because after death comes new life every single time. Look at a garden, look at the seasons, look at nature, look at our bodies, right? We die, we are reborn. It just happens. So when we talk about truth and we realize that like the energetic of truth is very ruthless to anything that's not true, meaning it kills, like it strips away. It's sort of, and it could be a gentle process if we're really receptive to it, or it could be like, a truck is hitting us and we just go splat, and we get run over, depending on how much attunement we have to that energetic, right? So yeah, that's one of the things I always have to start to talk about is death. Truth and death go hand in hand, but not death from a sort of sad or shadowy or, um, just ending based process. Death from the sense of like, okay, what needs to go so that the energy is liberated? What needs to just be laid to rest so it can compost, so that what's new and rightful for that new chapter or whatever it is can come forth. So that's a lot of the energy that I work with women. And believe me, like with myself as well, with my own body, I'm constantly scanning for like what needs to die, and it's a humbling process. So truth is a humbling force. And, whether you say truth is feminine or truth is masculine, I know people who kind of hold both schools of thought there. I don't really care as long as we're actually in fidelity to it, her, him, whatever you want to use, yeah, I think that's like the best way to start talking about truth. It's a harmonic, it's an energetic. It's not the same thing as saying, oh, this is the right way or this is the wrong way. So that's a very common pitfall I see women falling into, is they conflate truth with being right, and it's just not the same thing, because very often we'll see something in our lives where, by societal standards, we're doing the right thing, quote unquote, but it's just not true. So truth doesn't care about the paradigm of good, bad, right, wrong in the way that our minds care about that paradigm. So that's another important layer to just distinguish for those of you listening. How do you experience truth? Like you have a very different system than I do. Like I feel you as much more watery and yeah, like I guess, yeah, like floaty watery, if that, like you're floating water. You're not like a
Mhm.
deep, like heavy water, you're like floating water. So how
Mhm.
do you experience truth?
I would say something that I first of all feel in my body. Like I can feel the resonance in my body. Um, and it's yeah, to express it with words, I would say it provides me a sense of, when someone like speaks on that frequency, it provides me a sense of trust and safety. I receive that, and yeah, I would say that it's more in the feelings, I would say. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely. Right. It is a resonance. That's what I mean when I say it's like a frequency or a harmonic or like an energetic. It's not a concept that you study and then truth. It's a felt experience. And this is, I think, where, yeah, to your point, it is a very feminine process of attuning to, okay, we're like almost on that string of the harp, right? When you like thrum a harp and it just thwangs, like the actual reverberation feels really good, right? Because it's in tune, like the actual string of a guitar, the string of, that's a really good sort of metaphor for truth as well, is just when we hit it, right? Like a tuning fork, the note is clear and pure and there's no dissonance, right? So it's just felt. It's like, yes. And the mind just goes quiet. The mind actually has no say in what's true. The mind is actually in submission to truth. And usually we have it the other way around, where the mind is sort of driving the car or driving the show, running the show in our lives. And it's thinking ahead, it's strategizing, there's agenda, it's trying to protect us, it's trying to like get shit done. It's really running the show. All the while there's this undercurrent, right? There's this like river beneath the river, to quote Clarissa Pinkola Estes, Women Who Run with the Wolves, the, river beneath the river that's just running. It's just this truth river. And if we're wise enough, we can descend out of our minds into, and when I say wise, I just mean in like an embodied way, right? This is not like a better than thou sort of a thing. It's just a process that we all touch at some point. We descend out of the mind and we just start to like touch that deeper current. Like, what is down there? Oh, okay, that was unexpected. Okay, the water temperature feels really nice, but nobody else is down here. Am I really in the right place? Like, am I actually in the right place? Oh, okay, maybe it's not about right. Maybe it's just what is actually here underneath everything that I've been skating on top of or floating on top of. And when I do get quiet, to your point about silence or stillness or alone time earlier, then I do actually feel the truth of things underneath it all. And for a lot of us, that's the point where we get scared and we pop right back out and we run back into the shelter of the mind. And it's so normal. It's totally natural. There's nothing wrong with that. So I think devotion to truth, to this prior question, is that process of, okay, dissension. Can we touch into that current even more frequently than before? And really follow it, and trust that it's flowing somewhere, that because of this felt resonance, like you're saying, is ultimately going to be supportive for us. And when I say for us, I really mean for our soul, like our soul's journey, right? Because our mind probably won't like where it's going on at first. Our ego, if it has to get out of the way or shush itself, it's not going to like where that river is taking it. But our soul knows how to recognize truth. That's something that we just have. It's just a thing that we have, especially as women. Men have a slightly more challenging time with it sometimes, and women on birth control, particularly hormonal birth control, will have a more challenging time with it as well. But yeah, certainly, if we're just cycling naturally, or if we have gone through, motherhood, or, even menopause, and we're postmenopausal, like, we will feel that current. And even if it's very activating for our minds or our identity strata, like our personality layers, it's just a thing to pay attention to and continue to like surrender into. It's not an easy process, believe me. But it's just something that is rightful for our souls, and our souls know it, and they'll tell us, they'll give us all sorts of signs, usually through our bodies, whether or not something is rightful for us.
Wow, so beautifully said. Yeah. We have such an incredible, how can I say that? Yeah, it's incredible how our vessels work. And I feel the more I walk my journey, the more like I tend to myself and I spend time with myself and get to know myself, I could really trust more myself, and yeah, without trying to understand everything with the mind. But it's definitely a relationship to cultivate. Yeah. Yeah. And so you talked about descending, and I remember that a post about how um, about the rising of the man and the descent of women, and what descending means for women, and how it is to her greater service, thus to men, thus to her.
Mm. Yeah, and I think you're referencing a post actually by a friend of mine, and maybe, I don't know if you're thinking of a different one that maybe I like built off of her teaching, but this is, I think, originally from Christina McBoyle at Solar
Yeah,
Feminine
actually,
Arts.
yeah, absolutely. Actually, yes, you're
Yeah.
right. But
So in my
I
mind,
think,
it's like a trap.
right. But I think you shared about it, no? If it's,
Of course. Yeah, of
yeah,
course. Yeah. No, I just like to give credit where credit's due, because look, I mean, I think a lot of us are feeling the similar currents, but I also
yes,
just know how important it is to just credit lineage, and it doesn't mean that someone is better than or more advanced, or that, we can't also as women, find the same teachings within our own body vessels. Of course we can. Like the body will show us the way because it's like one of the most universal things. All the patterns occur through our bodies. But, to your point, like, yeah, she was a beautiful originator of that particular wording. So I think the post was, she descends, he rises.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Thank
so
you.
when women, you're welcome, of course. She's also a very dear friend of mine. So I just, yeah, want to include her in that way. Um, yeah. And I mean, changed my life through her teaching. So, there's that. She, Jillian Pothier, Perry Chase,
Mhm.
like really main three that very, very deeply changed my life with their
Okay.
teachings. So you can look those up. Anyone who's listening, all three of these women are just total powerhouses. Okay. She descends, he rises. This is going to be like as it animates through my body anyway. When I hear that, I don't hear it dogmatically, first of all. So I feel that as we, as women, descend out of our minds, come back and land in our bodies, land in our nervous systems, find home within ourselves. That process has its own rightful arc, and it doesn't just stop by landing in the underworld. So I think a lot of what happens out there in like divine feminine land, if I want to call it that, is there's this emphasis or overemphasis on, moon cycles and bleeding and being in the depths and being in the darkness and going into the underworld and, really just like hanging with Persephone, but only in the underworld. And we sort of forget, or that sort of quadrant of the, the feminine online world, so to speak, forgets that Persephone also spent 6 months in the topside world. Like, right? So there's a natural cyclical process, I think, also for this teaching of she descends, he rises. That's beautiful. And there's also the cyclical part where she is also rising, right? And he is probably descending into his own initiations and fighting and slaying his own dragons. So I don't hear that through a dogmatic lens. I just want to like name that because I think that there can be a tendency to want to oversimplify, right? If we're just getting into these teachings for the first time, we have hungry minds. Our minds are so hungry to understand and to categorize, but we have to be really, really careful about that because it's taking us away from the energy itself. The energy itself is not stagnant. It's not just that we drop down out of our minds and then we're just always in our wombs and we're always down in the depths of the underworld. No, of course not. Why else would why would we have the phase of, being in our follicular week, so to speak? And why would we ovulate? That's a very up and out sort of a phase, right? We're exposed, we're brilliant, we're shining, we're glowing, right? We want to like dance and be seen and have lots of sex and just like be very touched and handled, right? That has very little to do with ascension. It's all about ascension, but it's ascension within the body. And I think that's where this teaching has a very rightful sort of discernment quality for the field of 5D ascension, which I just find so ridiculous. Like, I'm not saying that there's not, other layers to this existence, but we're not supposed to be ascending out of our bodies and, popping out. It's just not, that's not the design. Why would we have incarnated otherwise? So she descends, he rises. The actual teaching that I then can build off of in my own work and my own life and what I observe is there is a need, and I will call it a need because I feel it as such deeply. There is a need for women to descend and anchor into something that is far deeper than what the world offers us. Why? Because when we do that, when we actually anchor down into the depths of who we be, who we are, what our soul is actually here to animate into this very female body that we happen to be in, that whole process of actually being in our bodies, being in a relationship of fidelity to our sensation, that informs how we be with men. And it actually is a whole world, a whole sensory world of data as they experience us. And also basically a connection for them back into the mystery, back into the deep feminine, the primordial feminine that they have in their own way. Sure, men definitely have that. It's just a lot easier for them to find that route through our bodies. And what we see when we look around is a whole bunch of women, millions and millions of women, for many reasons, and this is not a blame game, but for many reasons, popped up and out of that deeper anchor point, walking around from the neck up and interacting from men in this like two-dimensional way. So what men are experiencing is not the fullness of the primordial feminine. They're experiencing a very flattened, very like thinned out version of the full range of what we're actually capable of. And rightly so, they're responding to that. They're responding all the time to us, all the time. They can't not respond to us. So it's a very creational circuit, which is why I love the teaching of she descends and he rises, not from a dogmatic lens, but from the lens of, okay, there's actually a domain here that I can sink down into, belly to the earth. It's a phrase from Heather Bridge, another beautiful friend of mine, Sense Matrix on Instagram, and go belly down to the earth to then give him all of this feedback, all of this natural data, all of these input points of what's really important, what really matters, so that he can actually attune to us, not to this like thin band of just the mental layers or just, us living from the neck up. So that in turn helps him rise. And when I say rise, I mean rise in the sense of like rise in a way that actually works, not rise like a skyscraper built on a shoddy foundation that's just going to collapse, right? Because he's built it through no fault of his own, just by the virtue of him being a driven, ambitious male. Great. I love that. I am not a person to say, stop building to men or like the future is only female. That to me does not resonate at all. For me, the future is union. It always has been. And it's like the alpha and omega right there for me. But we have to actually be able to give men data. And that comes through our bodies. That comes through us being in deep, deep, honest relationship with what our needs are. Like I said at the beginning, with that primordial pulse of truth, right? And being able to actually express that, not just feel it, because that's easy for us, some of us to feel it, but then what? It has to rise out of us as well. So that's not just that we stay down in the underworld. That's only half the teaching. We also have to come back out so that we can actually share, say, speak, use the voice, orate, oracular, oracle, right? It's all tied together. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. We have our parts to play in that. So having a, yeah, big responsibility as women too, to, yeah, to follow that pulse of truth within us and to honor also our core femininity, our bodies, our vessels, which is, yeah, giving the highest service to ourselves and to the relationship. Yeah.
Yeah. And one thing I want to briefly bring in, just because you had mentioned her in, just a little bit ago, is there's a teaching from Gillian Pothier that just totally reoriented something for me that I feel is, this is like, it's time. I need to like bring this in.
Let's go.
Couple of things. Yin, so the feminine, right? Feminine energy, the more like internal, the more sensing, feeling energy. Yin is very inconvenient. And yin, this is the Jillian teaching, yin is expensive. Yin is expensive. There's like a truth to that is just inconvenient. So when you talk about it requires us to be in our bodies, it requires us to be sensitive, like that's inconvenient, isn't it? Because we have to feel a lot. And that kind of sucks sometimes when there's so much shit to feel. Like, really. And that's one of the pieces that I don't like to step over. I want to be with that. I want to acknowledge that sometimes feeling that much, sometimes being a feeling woman feels hard. Like, it's a lot. It's a lot of sensation. Inconvenient sensation, particularly if we're trying to measure up to day-to-day standards of what being a functional, quote unquote, functional human being looks like, or what being a societally acceptable, palatable human being looks like. It's just not compatible with that. It's very inconvenient to those structures. Now, mind you, this is the point in the conversation where a lot of women will say, down with the patriarchy. It's just men who are keeping that blah, blah, blah in place. And I'm like, okay, first of all, no, that's not true. I also am highly in favor of having extremely strong and integrated patriarchs. I think we need more of them, not less. I know you're on the same page with that. So we can stay on that soapbox all day long. but that involves healing our relationship to men and the masculine, which is also part of this journey, right? Huge part. But to your point, like if you want to be a sensitive woman, or if you want to actually be in touch with your feelings and be able to like share about them, it's going to be inconvenient for people around you at times. You'll have to sort of, in a way, uh, reroute the parts of you that just want love all the time and are willing to collapse or fawn or play the good girl just to keep things comfortable and everything smooth sailing and peacemaker, peacekeeping. Like none of that, that's not going to work if you're actually in devotion to what's true. It might work for certain circumstances, but it's not going to be the honest truth in all. So that's another piece where yin is inconvenient, and it also takes something to be able to live in a space that is more yin saturated. That's why the teaching from Ms. Pothier, whom we both love and adore, is yin is expensive. Yin is expensive. It takes something to create a place, to create a society, to create a community, or to create a home where it is safe and sustainable for a woman to live in more of a yin-oriented space. And I know that you, this is just placing a little bit of a spotlight on how I see you. You have done a really beautiful job, in my opinion, of cultivating that for yourself prior to being under what I would call the dome of provision of a noble man who desires to tend to you and take care of you such that you can animate much more of that yin type energy. Right. So I actually feel like you're a beautiful example of someone who has done this for herself and given, like, really prioritized her yin, like has not fracked her yin, has not outsourced it, has not squashed it, has not turned it hyper rigid and, try to overcompensate and muscle through. Like there's none of that in you. There's a lot of that in my past. And it took a lot to unwind that. So I feel a deep sense of admiration for you as a woman and where you are and how you have been able to really cherish yourself. It took me a long time to learn that I had to cherish myself first in order for a man to be able to really cherish that part of me. So I just appreciate that, you are who you are and you're being who you're being in the way that you are. It's really, really, it's valuable. Super
Thank you
valuable.
for sharing that.
You're
Thank you.
welcome.
Yeah, actually, um, many years ago, I was really a woman that was really pushing myself a lot. So I had to recode also a lot of programming um, and a lot of teachings online about with Christina and Jillian too. Really supported me, and you now too. And I just remembered this post that really resonated in me that you shared maybe a few months ago about how beautiful it is for women to not just have like goal, like huge goals of like making 200 or 300K a year, like if she has it good, but like how beautiful it is to just be healthy sufficient. And when you said that, like I saw that just this term healthy sufficient, I could just exhale, providing me such a beautiful feeling of, yeah, that feels so good. Because I had this idea of like, oh, I want to create so much. And that was creating so much constriction in my body. And just seeing this term really was very supportive to me with the idea of I can just do my things in a simple way, build my little business and be sufficient. And that feels good because it allows me to have a space and time to create, to do what I want to create and to be um, in that energy, right? In that beautiful energy in my yin. And yeah.
Hmm.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
thank
it's really it's honoring your true pace. It's another way that I
you.
would say that. To
Mhm.
be healthily self-sufficient looks very different woman to woman, but only you can really feel for yourself what that means. And I think what part of it means for a lot of us is releasing the shiny standards that we might see externally. And again, bringing that focus of awareness internal and asking ourselves, what do I actually need here, to feel really good? It's probably a lot less than we think. Meaning, not to go into cloistered nun mode, when we're just alone, we're never seeing friends, we're not spending money on anything. Like, that's very clenched down, in my
Mhm.
opinion. But rather just to be really real with ourselves, like to me, I don't need that much to be really content. But what I have realized, maybe you're the same, I don't know, is I need whatever I have to be of high quality. So
Mm.
I don't need a lot, but what I do have, I really need it to be dialed. Like, I have very specific preferences and standards and taste, but I don't need bulk. Do you see what I'm saying? So
Absolutely.
yeah, it's like quality over quantity would be the easiest way of saying that. And I think a lot of us are actually like that. But then if we're still kind of hooked into topside world constructs of keeping up with the Joneses or whatever, it's another way to get pulled out of that center point of like, nah, I don't actually need all of that. Like, I really just need this
Yeah.
to feel super, super nourished. So is it more about nourishment? Yes. Then yeah, like aspiring to some mental ideal of what our lives should look like.
Yes, absolutely. And when I was tuning in and feeling into, okay, who I might I share my life with? What is the type of man? I don't know, but like what I'm feeling into is this man doesn't want me to compete with him. This man doesn't like I feel that. This is what came very naturally. He doesn't want me to compete with him or me to be completely like overwhelmed all the time. And so yeah, I just listened to that, to that what felt this truth inside of me, and that feels good. That feels good to me.
Amazing.
Yeah, yeah, that feels really beautiful. Hmm.
Competition. Do we want to talk about competition? It's a
Oh
question.
yeah.
Yeah. So this theme of performing for love is a really common one that I see in women, where if we have had parents, upbringing, whatever, childhoods, where one or both of our parents did not simply cherish us for our beingness, and attune to us and just love on us, and instead held really high standards of how we needed to be a certain way in order to actually get their love or get their attunement, then we'll just run that pattern on into adulthood. And very often that will look like women who are just constantly, yeah, attempting to like perform to either get male attention or to prove their worth in an external sort of a way to receive the love, connection, safety, and belonging from a man. And what we get twisted, I think, in modern society is exactly to your point, this thread around like, oh, as a woman, if I want to be with a successful, worldly, wealthy provider type of a man, then I have to do the exact same thing. When in the vast majority of cases that I have seen anyway, it's quite the complement, quite the complementary opposite. Where to your point, as you descended into your body and you were really just sort of sifting for yourself and feeling the type of man, or like the future, your future husband, essentially, right? Because that's like
Mhm.
who you're attuning to, is like
Yeah.
his frequency, his energetic. He does not care for you to be the exact same as he is. Why? Because he doesn't need more of that. He already has it. He is the one embodying that. It's not to say that you can't have pieces of it, or if it is in your desire, that he wouldn't like just love and support you in whatever pursuits, right? Of course. But this notion that in order to be a match for a successful worldly man, we have to compete with him is absolute nonsense. And I really need to dispel that for any woman listening. It's just not true. Um, More often than not, the healthy self-sufficiency, which is what Megan was referencing in a post of mine, that is what is desirable. Like, okay, so this woman is not going to be a burden on me as a man, as a provider, right? But rather she can hold herself, she can hold her own to an extent, and then genuinely has space for me to tend to her, to take care of her, to give to her, would be probably a more masculine way to say that, right? So like she has space to receive me. That's what
Hmm.
a man and his experience would be. Like, this woman in her life, yeah, she can receive me. Like, I can penetrate into her space and her life with my mind, my vision, my, achievements, and I can give to her, right? I can
Hmm.
actually, there's space for me to give to her. So I think it's that element of cultivating the space for men to actually give into us rightfully. And of course, I'm not saying you have to accept everything from every man, right? So hear me on that. There's obviously discernment. We are the ones who say yes and we say no. So we have to be in right relationship with our yes and our desire, and in right relationship with our truthful no. No as a complete sentence, or no thank you. Very elegant.
Hmm.
No thank you. You have every right to want to give that to me, but it just doesn't feel good to me. So thank you, but no. Right. So very simple. Yeah. And then allow that the sort of filter to just be there, where you have this space over here with you, and you have your yes and your no. And then there's the whole world of all of this energy that's so beautiful that really does want to pour forth from men. And then allow whatever energy feels really good to you to come in and really receive them. Right. And I think it's that process of like experimentation with what does it even look like to lay down our competitive edge, lay down all of the layers of our personality that feel like we have to prove ourselves worthy of his love. And by the way, that's usually about dad, right? Lay those down. Dad's not perfect. He never was. He never will be. We got to make peace with that. And then actually just be in fidelity or in devotion to, seeking that truth of what do we want to receive? What does feel really good to receive? And that might change season by season, you know? But it's not about competing with men. They already have so much going on for them. You know what I mean? We don't have to match them in the exact same ways.
Hmm.
I mean, if we're interested in complementary union, we certainly don't have to. If we're interested in more of a business partnership style relationship or marriage, then, maybe, yeah. But I don't get the feeling that that's probably what the listeners of this particular podcast are desiring in their heart of hearts.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. Um, I'm thinking of a post of yours again. I love your posts. um, Talking about devotion as the opposite of seduction, and how many women fall into that, myself included. I've been falling into that, and how it's not serving neither ourselves, neither a man and his masculine template to, yeah, to just be someone, a woman that just is here to seduce him instead of being truthfully devotional.
Yeah. So much to say about this. This is a big can of worms. And I always have to start by saying there is no blame in my system for a woman such as myself in prior years, or you, as you just shared, on a rightful path or pendulum swing, if we want to say, of getting in touch with her, an aspect of her innate, primordially feminine power, which is to naturally be magnetic to men and alluring to men. There's nothing wrong with that process of like really just coming to terms with, we have this power. It's innate. We didn't have to do anything to earn it. It just is. Now, will that power or potency take different flavors with different women? Absolutely. Like, I don't personally run a ton of siren energy, but I know a lot of women who do. There are just different fractals of this energetic. But when I say devotion is the opposite of seduction, in that particular post, I was referring to the fact that if you look linguistically at the word seduction, um, seducere or seducere, right? Like in Latin. I might be pronouncing it wrong. It's been a while. I think I had 1 year of Latin in high school. So apologies to any of my linguists out there. Um, it means to lead off path, or to lead astray, to pull a man specifically away from duty. That's actually like the root of it. And so when I see that linguistically, I feel something in my body. I'm like, well, I don't want to lead a man away from his duty. I just don't want that, because to me, I see the importance of men exacting their purpose in the world. I actually value that. I want more of that. But that's because I have like a deep love of men, and I don't feel the need to, at least anymore, I don't feel the need to have this power over dynamic with men where I'm secretly, covertly controlling men through sexual energy or through my sensuality or through my allure. I don't want to control men. I don't need to control men in order to keep myself safe. And I understand for a lot of women that may not be true yet because they haven't even seen it done. Like they don't know their own innate power just from the erotic innocence that they actually possess, where it's not a power over dynamic. It's a very inspiring and evocative dynamic for sure. And can you evoke and inspire so much out of a man just by the virtue of your natural beauty and magnetism and yes, also allure? Absolutely. But that has nothing to do with leading a man away from his duty or pulling him off path. So the way that I see that is devotion, when we devote. So the root of the word devotion boils down to vow, if you look at it. And what do we vow ourselves to? Where do we make vows in life? We make vows towards something that we value, that we aspire to embody or to live out or to, place our energy towards for a very long time. So it's an energy of putting energy towards something that we value, devotion, that word is. Whereas I see seduction as a word that is actually about pulling something away. So taking someone away. Do you see? So that's like a very, exactly, extracting, hooking, pulling, manipulating, controlling, versus devotional, right? Devotion or love that is devotional it's a forward type of an outpouring, if you will. It's a vow that's made in service of something greater. And that's a whole teaching that I'm so glad that you asked. I actually haven't gotten the opportunity to speak at this level of detail about that particular dichotomy that I so viscerally feel. Ugh. And I think because of that, we really see, we see that dichotomy outpictured in the sort of abundance of women now who are on OnlyFans, for example, right? We see that dichotomy of women who are not, they're not even aware of their rightful and frankly, like super sustainable and generative power of devotion, which can look like the siren, the vixen, the slut, the whore, etc., right? All of those actually can be animated through devotion instead of animated through seduction. And I think that's where we get it twisted, where we think, oh, to be devotional means I'm never going to be, that type of woman for my man, because that just would, that's like bad and wrong. No. If we're really in relationship with our own full range, it allows us to be in relationship with the full spectrum of humanity inside of our men. And this is now very nuanced teaching, so let's see how it comes through. Part of that spectrum of humanity as it animates through men is their beast. So I teach a lot about this in Chalice, which is my longer, deeper, more advanced program for consorts and oracles to powerful worldly men. I love it. It's like, the best thing ever. Hopefully coming later this year, we'll see. I would like to run it again. But the beast in men is very, it is a very, very vital part. And I would go so far as to say like nutrient that men need to be able to feel in themselves to be whole. And so because of what we've done, and this is also through women, I understand there are lots of reasons for this. There's no blame here. It's just a fact. What we've done is we've suppressed male appetite and desire as well. We've said, nope, that's not acceptable. We can't have that here. So where do you think it's going to go? Of course, it needs an outlet. It's not finding that outlet through union, right? Because we've now suppressed their desire and their hunger. So where is it going to go? Well, what does water do? It finds the easiest downstream path. There's a whole pool, of opportunity for men to get that particular need and nutrient met. And unfortunately, then they get hooked into, right? Seduced, literally, like pulled away from their duty, just in order to get a very real and rightful need met. When in fact, at least this is my belief, they could be getting that met through any of us who actually have a relationship with the deeper primordial feminine within us and can bring that nutrient to the table as devotion, not to hook the man, not to pull on his energy and like feed off of him and get things from him and extract from him. No, 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 no. That's like, again, seduction land, but literally like, no, this is my offering. This is my offering. So yeah, I really appreciate you asking. It's a much deeper teaching. And whew, yeah, I mean, we can talk about it anytime you want. I love
I
speaking
love
about it,
that.
is the point.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank
this
you.
beautiful answer.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, something that has been truly deeply healing for me is to recognize that men and women, we're equal, but we're different. We're not the same. And when I really felt that truth within my being, I could really say, I need a man. I need a man in my life, truly. And I have space for him, to recognize that and to be honest enough with myself to say that. And so on that, could you, elaborate maybe on how men and women will truly complement each other in a union?
Yeah, there's so much to say here. Where do I begin? um, See, the tricky part about this kind of question or conversation is when people hear it, it can sometimes lead us into, again, that dogmatic realm of like, he does this, she does that,
Mm.
right? And that's not at all where we're going with this answer.
Mhm.
So I just want to say, like, again, for all of the ladies out there who are reading all the Instagram polarity posts, like that are feeling the dogma leaching into their bones and consuming things that really just, oh yeah, don't align with the full range of who you are. This is why it's so important to discern what's really true versus what looks right, what looks wrong. This is not going to be a dogmatic answer. So first, hear me on that. We are complementary. And the layer that I want to speak to here is really biology. And biology is non-dogmatic. It just is. Biology exists, I mean, in humans anyway, like what's the purpose of our design? It's like fairly easy to see. It's for survival of the species. So we're designed as complementary to facilitate propagation, survival of the species. And hormonally, what that means is men are very different from women. This is like almost a 101 level conversation, but I'm happy we're having it because it's like lost knowledge in this day and age. We're not supposed to be operating on the same exact schedule, 24-hour hormonal schedule as men. It just is not how it's designed. Like, how would we ever be able to ovulate if we were to do that? Like, it's not literally, that is what birth control, at least hormonal birth control, does. It suppresses ovulation. There's a whole other slew of things that are not good for the female body. Not the least of which is it actually impairs our ability to smell pheromones and determine whether a man is biologically compatible for us through how he smells, through how he tastes, his saliva, right, etc. Like, huge missing. I have a lot of clients and women in my spaces who have been on, I have to speak about this, right, because it's just important, who've been on hormonal birth control, whether it be the IUD or the pill. I've not seen it happen with the copper IUD. There are other things that happen with that, though. It causes chronic inflammation.
Oh, I
Anyway, so
had
they've been
that.
on HBC. Yeah, exactly. So,
Yes.
yeah, it
Yeah.
has a lot of really, really bad impact on the female
Mhm.
body. But at least with the copper IUD, so I am told, you can still smell a man fairly
Mhm.
properly because you're still
Mm.
ovulating. You're still having these hormonal ebbs and flows. But with the pill and with the IUD, the hormonal IUD, it suppresses, it cuts off all of that. So not only are we not able to sense and feel in the full range of our instinct any longer, so discernment gets dialed down. Like, we have to just be honest about that. the actual criteria that we usually instinctually would evaluate a man based off of, like, for instance, smell, right? Does he naturally smell so good to me? When I make out with him, am I wet? Like, just by virtue of how he tastes, how I can smell his skin, your mind. Like, this is basic, primal, mammal to mammal stuff here that we are designed with. Speaking of your question, like, how are men and women complementary? So if we cut all of that off, if we suppress it, then we have all sorts of second order, third order consequences that really suck, really, really suck. Not the least of which is, of course, what I've seen too many times. I don't like it. Where, a woman will get married to a man while she's on birth control, and she comes off of it to try to conceive. And then she finds out all of a sudden that she's no longer attracted to her husband. He doesn't smell good to her. She can't go down on him without feeling revolted by his taste. Like, it's really bad stuff. You know what I mean? So I say this, I have to keep talking about this publicly, because anytime this
Absolutely.
question comes up, it's just like so important. It's right there. It's like the design is designed for a reason. You don't have to believe in God. Just look at biology. That's all I'm asking. And then, of course, yes, are there other layers? Like, can men work a lot more hours in one go than we can, with less stress and tax on their adrenals because of how their hormones work? Yes, they can. Are their muscles, the actual muscle fibers, built very differently and able to do more, faster, stronger than our muscle fibers are built? Because guess what? We just don't have as much testosterone. Yeah, that's huge difference. Huge difference. So again, this is just at the level of biology. This is not dogma. I really don't like, again, biology doesn't care what we think about it. It's just going to keep going, because again, it's all about survival of the species. It doesn't really care whether or not we have opinions about it or social moral constructs about it. The fact is, like, males and females are simply different. And look, is there a gradation? Sure. But we're different. And so that will impact how we are as social creatures as well. Women will want belonging and safety. Men will typically want freedom, adventure, or, you could say, purpose. Like, they will want to exact their will on the world, right? And that's just something that they innately care about. They have to experience their maleness through that. They get to experience hormonal feedback loops when they win, when they score a point, when they achieve something. It's a very different experience for them than it is for us. And we experience different hormonal cascades when we feel connection, safety, closeness, intimacy, belonging. We get all sorts of yummy oxytocin that feels really good to us, right? So it's just like, I think, to boil this conversation down, which maybe this is like a good wrap up point here, the fact that we think as a society that hormones can just be like toyed with, like tweaked and played with and turned off or turned on, or maybe changed and take that hormone or this or whatever, like, it just shows, for me anyway, it shows where we've strayed from trusting the design, that actually brought us here, like, that made us. Otherwise, why would we be alive? Be able to breathe on this planet, this beautiful planet, right? And yeah, I think that's a little bit arrogant, to be honest. That's not to say that we shouldn't, advance scientific progress and, do all that good stuff. But yeah, I don't think that we really know the ramifications as much as we think we do. So yeah, I believe we're meant to be complementary, and that's simply through the lens of biology. And of course, we could make all sorts of other conjectures societally based on that.
Mm-hmm. There's a lot of sacredness and wisdom in recognizing that our bodies are the most powerful technologies that exist. Truly.
Truly. Like, beyond our wildest dreams. Yeah. Thank you so much for this conversation. I appreciate you.
I just wanted to ask you, let me think. Yeah, I'm curious about, I see you, yeah, how does it feel for you to serve women on this journey? And I'm curious about you sharing maybe one of the most beautiful transformation you have heard in women in your field. Of course, without getting into the details for the sake of privacy, but I'm curious if you would like to share something that really touched you. And
Yeah. um, two examples come to mind immediately, and one is a much longer arc, so I might dip into both, but very different women, very different parts of the sort of like female feminine journey. Um, yeah, I really feel so blessed. Like, it was a very humbling moment to me when a woman that I had worked with um, a couple months prior, she reached out to me after we had completed our work together, one-on-one mentorship in particular, and just saying to me profusely for helping plant the seeds that ultimately led to her and her husband rekindling their physical and erotic intimacy after 2 years of not having any. Um, and they have children together, and it was really taxing on both of them as parents, as humans, and of course, would have ripple effects on their kids. And for me, it's just like, that's everything. That's the whole point. I just, yeah, I so trust the generative circuitry that can run between a good man and a good woman, a woman who is great in her woman and a man who is great in his manhood in his maleness. And I just desire to serve that, because really good things, like magical things, start to happen when when I'm able to support women in that way. So that was super touching to me, personally, and yeah, just brought me to tears, when I heard that from her. And I'm not saying that that's how it always goes or anything like that, but I have worked with, a number of women where, yeah, they've found new pathways into intimacy, whether that be, with themselves, with a boyfriend, fiance, husband, father of their children after many years, right? Whatever constellation that might be. The other example, though, much longer arcs. This woman's been with me for over a year and a half now in private mentorship, and she's just stellar. I just have so much love for her. And if she listens to this, she knows who she is. And, you know, there's just a level of, and she's also a deeply spiritual practitioner. Like, she's in service in her profession, as well, in multiple areas, every day. So she serves clients and patients and such. And there's just like a level of, raw commitment that she possesses to just be with all parts of herself. And it sucks sometimes. And I just see her and I'm like, yeah, like, your courage is so beautiful to me, like, she is willing to really stick it through to get to truth. And that is, it takes something. It's like you said before, it's not for the faint of heart. Like, she came to me a year and a half or so ago, and she was running all sorts of love addiction patterns. She was not with a man. She was not on dating apps. She was just starting to, like, open herself up to that whole world. She was running all sorts of love addiction patterns and just, like, really had very little ability to hold sensation, and was collapsing on her desires left and right, and just, like, letting all sorts of wonky behavior from men exist in her field. Not like she was tolerating it. It was her, who was sort of forwarding that in her own life. And fast forward now, I mean, literally, she is purchased, like, they've purchased a house together, she and her now beloved. And they're just about to move in together. And it's like the most secure, loving, not perfect by any means. And so it's just like, it's not always blissful, right? Like, this is where we get into idealism. It's not that it's always blissful, but they are so good for each other and to each other and with each other. And they're both of them are so, yeah, like, emotionally sober. So they're able to actually go into the depths with each other. And again, it's not about perfection, but, like, the fact that she's able to receive that kind of love from a man now means everything to me. Like, that's what it is about for me as well. And man, I just, yeah, I mean, it's, it's easy to think like, oh, like, I did that. It's like, no, sure, I held the field and yes, gave a lot of calibration for it, but she did all of the hard work. Like, let's be very clear, if you are my client, you are the one that's doing the hard work. I am here to help, support, mentor, guide, however I can support you, I will do so. I go above and beyond, and everybody who's worked with me knows that. But it's really about the women who place themselves on this path and like humble themselves to the process. And it's a lot. And then the rewards are so beyond a lot. Like it's just magical. So thank you for asking. It's such a fulfilling question to like feel, you
That's so
know?
beautiful to hear.
Yeah.
Wow, I just see, like, let's say beyond the name of like devotional union and feminine, masculine, and all of this. Like, just I see men and women, a lot of men and women, more and more completely devoted to harmony and balance within themselves and within their relationship. And I have so much gratitude for my brothers and sisters on this path, because I was writing a post recently about that. It's the fertile soil for a healthy future, because it just impacts everything. It's everything.
Everything. Everything.
Everything.
Wild.
It's wild, yeah. I feel quite complete. I just would love to ask you if you have any other thing to share, something that pops into your heart.
Yeah, really just an invitation, you know, for the women who are listening. If I may be so bold as to invite you into a community of women very similar to Megan, because obviously she was a part of it for a little bit there. We have our monthly enrollments for Soul Sanctuary, usually the last couple of days of each month going into the next month. So honestly, I mean, if you're on this path of inner union, you know, you can either work with a guide one-on-one, like with Megan, for example, or with myself. If you're looking for community, there are plenty out there, and I'm more than happy to receive you into Soul Sanctuary in particular. It's a beautiful place to start. Very accessible investment, like price point wise. There's no, like it's just a space to play and experiment with. You know what I mean? Like you can even probably speak about it better than I can on the receiving end, but that's my only invitation, you know, because I think these conversations are so rich. And then sometimes it's hard to know on the listening end, like, okay, cool, this was all great, but what do I do next? Where do I go? How do I find that next level of nourishment? So I just wanted to offer a pathway, you know, there are many, but that's one. So
Absolutely. Such a beautiful space to be, you know, with other sisters walking a similar journey. Very nourishing. I recommend that definitely. And do you have any current offerings right now, and except Soul Sanctuary, if you want to share?
yeah, for sure. Super simple. I mean, we can always have a chat about one-on-one mentorship. That is sort of on a rolling basis. And there's an application that usually helps women to feel through their desires. It's nothing like you have to, you know, perform or be at a certain point of the journey in order to like get inside the doors. It's not like that. But it is high touch. It's very custom to you. I love my one-on-one ladies because we do get to go super, super deep. So that's something that you can find also through the Instagram bio. So that's at mythic.feminine. I'm sure you'll put that in the show notes.
Will.
And thank you. And then otherwise, get on my mailing list if you're curious about Chalice. So that's more of the in-depth, advanced, and I say advanced because it's just a very, it's almost like a pressure cooker environment in a positive way. And that really is for women it's a small group, like 8 to 10 women, right? It's about 4 months. And we go in deep on preparation for union with a powerful worldly man. So this is like, if you're, you know, dating, engaged, if you've just gotten married to a man that holds a lot in the world, and you're really preparing your system to receive him and frankly amplify his mission and thereby also amplifying yours. That's like a huge body of work that I love to bring through. But I just don't have the launch date for that yet. So you'll have to get on my mailing list if you want to hear about it, or any of the other pieces as well. More than welcome. So yeah, I think that's mostly it for the moment. And just thank you again. I mean, it's such an honor to get to share in this like long form way. It feels so good to me. I love it. And to do it with you, especially since we know each other like personally, it's so refreshing and so nourishing to me. So thank you.
I really enjoyed this conversation. Thank you, Ginger. I feel it served me, and I know it's gonna serve whoever will come to listen to this podcast. So yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for this moment together. Thank you everyone for tuning in. And see you next time.
See you next time.